There. Okay. Everybody, I hope can see that. The first 74 days of 2021. A lot of people are saying, well, why did you choose 74 days? Well, we tried to get this out right before the end of the quarter, so everybody would kind of have a head start on the second quarter. And so what you're seeing also is the first 74 days through March the 15th coincides with March the 15th of 2020 when everything started shutting down. It's going to be, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but it's going to be a little harder here over this next couple of months to compare 2021 to 2020 because we actually, we're doing about half the business as an industry that we were doing prior to that. So the reason that we chose in 74 days is because it coincides with the shutdown of COVID last year, and it gives us a good picture of where we are. Okay, the second page that we're going to look at, or the first page of this, we've got about 50 slides here, but the first page, we're going to spend a little time right here because this is the most important graph that we ever work with ever. And this is where we overlay the median price with the months of supply. And as you can see on the left side, $373,000 was our median price before the recession. So this was in 2007. This was the spring of 07. Everything was moving along nicely. $373,000 was a median price of a single family home in Dade County. We're going to look at condos in Broward County in a minute here, but $373,000. Then the recession started coming. If you remember, in 06, we started feeling things were slowing and just kind of sales were slumping. Nobody wanted to admit that we were getting into trouble. But then we quickly learned by the spring of 08 that our inventory had risen in single family homes to more than 3.5 years of supply. That's what this bar is right here. This bar is comparing to this 40 months over here on the left. And of course, what we know from all of our times together in the past, 6 to 9 months of supply is what we're looking for. If we have 6 to 9 months of supply, the sellers are happy, the buyers are happy, everything moves along nicely. When you get to 40 months of supply, the only thing that's going to correct that is to reduce price. And of course, it takes sellers a long time to come to that realization, but it did start happening in 08. So we saw all of this price reduction in 08. And look at how it fell. And we didn't really hit the bottom of that until we got over into the last into the first part of 2011. So we fell to $165,000 as a median price for a single family home. And once we got to that level, and as you see, this whole period in here, this is about 2 years almost, it just kind of stayed at this level. And this was the buyers kind of building their confidence that it was not going to fall any further. It fell a little bit further, but then once the buyers said, wow, this is a bargain. So they all started buying, and look at all these, all these blocks for a full year. So as you see the values increasing all the way back up to 373 again. Now look at that. The median price back before the recession was 373,000, and now here we are all the way out to 2020. So 13 years it took us to get back to the median price of a single family home in Dade County. This is, obviously unprecedented during at least our lifetimes that we, well, I guess, the Depression was the worst time before this, and this was certainly not the Depression, but it was certainly a great recession. And so we've got back up to $373,000. And then this shaded area right here represents the pandemic period. So here we are in the spring of 2020, and we're at 373,000. We weren't sure what was going to happen. I remember actually saying on some of these Zoom calls that most people thought that we would probably kind of be getting back to work in June or July of last year. Well, what in the world were we thinking? I mean, here we are now more than a year later, and we're still trying to get everybody back to school and back to work. Now, during that period, though, because we had this massive movement of people all across the country, our prices shot up to $455,000. Now, this is such a moving price on a weekly basis now. You really can't even get these reports done before it's changed again. But if you're jotting down some notes, that $455,000 by the end of that was on March the 15th. By March the 31st, that 455 median price had risen to 495. And then if you carry it all the way on up, like, I mean, this is March the 15th. So now here we are 30 days later, almost, today is the middle of April. So through yesterday's numbers, April the 13th, the April the 13th median price for that last, 13 days was $538,000. Now that's significant. That means that, we had an increase from March the 15th of 455 up to April the 13th of 538, significant increase in the median price. Now, again, remember what median price means. That means that half of the homes are selling for less, half are selling for more. This is not an average price. I mean, the average price would probably be even, or it would be even higher, because we're selling a much greater number of homes in the high end now than we were prior to the pandemic. So hopefully everybody kind of sees that. If you have questions about that, you can start chatting in, and Sherry, you can jump in and tell us about those. Okay, so we have a good picture of how this graph works. Okay, we're going to see 3 more of these. Okay, so that was single family, and now the next one is condominiums in Dade County. Same thing. Back during the recession, median price of a condo in Dade County was $265,000. It fell to $112,000, and then it started making its way up. And if you look, you see the incline of this slope here. So this slope was very sharp. It was rising very quickly. But then over here, it kind of levels out a little bit. Now, there's a correlation between this rate of increase in median price and the months of supply. When the months of supply get down here into this 6 to 9 months range, everybody feels comfortable. There's not enough, we have enough houses at that point, but once we start dropping below 6 months of supply, we don't have enough. And that pushes the prices even higher. So you have more buyers than you have sellers, and the price goes higher. Once the inventory starts to build, people started putting more properties on the market during this period. We started getting up into the 13, 14, 15 months of supply for condos. And the rate of increase, it tempered back a little bit. So it's not this sharp curve here as it is here. But what's happened since March the 15th, when it was $280,000, it rose by the end of March to $300,000. And at the end of April 13th, that was just yesterday, it is now at $320,000. So we're seeing these significant increases. And at the same time all this is happening, we're seeing the months of supply just continue to get lower and lower. If you went back, to the graph down here at the bottom, we're at about almost 10 months. But by the end of March, we were at 5.1 months, and by the end of April, we're at 7 months. So, and during that same period of time, our listing inventory, this is a positive, our listing inventory is starting to bounce up now. So we have a 12%, we had a 12% increase in the number of listings of condos between the end of March, the month of March and the month of February. So March listings were up 12% over the February listings, which is a big positive, because prior to that, we had not been getting the number of new listings because a lot of people were afraid to list their homes because of COVID. And then the March sales were up 42% over February sales. So this is just the last 60 days to look at how much activity we've had. Kind of put that into kind of perspective in one building. I was looking at the Grove Isle building in the Grove over the weekend just to analyze what's happening there. They're having the greatest number of sales at Grove Isle. This is a building built back in the early 80s, like 79, 80, 81, 3 towers there, a little over 500 units. And they're now averaging a sale of 1 condo a day at Grove Isle. And this is after years of just kind of languishing, and the prices per square foot have increased in the last 12 months from $338 average price per square foot to $409 per square foot. And a lot of activity. So I think that's one building that we're all familiar with, or many people are familiar with, but you could give that same story now for a lot of condo buildings. I'll talk a little bit more about condos in a second. Okay, I'm gonna speed up a little bit. Broward County, now that you understand how this graph works, their median price was $380,000. It fell to $179,000, and then it's climbed its way back to the same, $370,000, not even quite back to where we were 13 years ago, and now it was $425 at the end of March. at the middle of March. This was March the 15th. March the 31st, it had gone from 425 up to $450,000. And yesterday, for the last 13 days, the median price of a single family home in Broward is now at 455. But what really is remarkable is that the months of supply, while back here we were about 2.5 months, Broward County has 1 month of supply now for single family homes. When you get to 1 month of supply, you're going to continue to see significant appreciation. And again, you see these graphs back down here in the right bottom corner. When these months, were up here at, and these were very low months too. These were, 6 and 7 months of supply here. But once we got down to 2 months and now 1 month of supply, prices are going to continue to escalate because we just have so many people wanting to buy and not as many people wanting to sell. Okay, that was single family, and now these are condos for Broward County. Similar picture again, and during when the recession started, we were at $190,000 price. It fell to $74,000 in the spring of 11, and now 10 years later, we're at $200,000. And if you look at the last 2 weeks or 4 weeks, at the end of March, this 200,000 had risen to 210,000. And now at the end of April 13th, at the end of business on the 13th, for the 13 days of April, that median price is now $227,000. Incidentally, all these graphs, you have access to at ewminsight.com. Don't go there right now, but when we finish, you can go back and find all of these graphs, and you can pass them on to whoever you would like to pass them to. Okay, so what's been causing all of this? Sherry, you got to.
Yeah. Actually, Pilar had a question about the price change in Grove Isle from 338 to 409 per square foot. She was curious to know which period that was in. Do you recall?
That was comparing 2020. Thank you. 2020, the average price per square foot of the units sold during that period, and it was more than one a day in 2020. Excuse me, more than not one a day, more than I think we had like 37 sales during that period. For all of 2020 is like 3 a month. And then what we've experienced so far this year, and I think earlier I did say one a day. It was we sold 12 units there. It's one a week in the first 12 to 13 weeks of 2021. So that $338 a square foot was for 200. That was for the 2020 average, and for the 2021 sales, that average per square foot was $409. So yeah, thank you for calling that out, because I got carried away there. Okay, all right. Now interest rates. Interest rates. As you look back to 1981, for the ones of us that were trying to sell during that period, we were working with some very high interest rates. And yes, we did actually close deals at 18.6% during that period. And then by January of 95, it dropped to 9.2, 09, 4.7, just January of this year, the lowest in history, I guess, 2.65%. But now that's beginning to bump up a little bit. And so some people say, well, that's not very much, that shouldn't alarm anybody. But the interest rate has as much to do with values as the values of a home, because what happens on this sheet, and you all have this, we sent this out a few weeks ago, but as you look at a $500,000 loan at 3%, the principal and interest payment is $2,108 a month. If the rate goes up to 3.125%, you could now only borrow $492,000, so $8,000 less in borrowing. Now, again, let's go back and look. We're right now roughly at 3.17, so this is 3.125. So, we're right in this range right here somewhere. So for someone who got a mortgage at 3%, and certainly even less was better, but if 3% is still, that was a very, very good rate. They could borrow $500,000 with a $2,100 monthly payment. If they were only qualified for a $2,100 month payment, they can't make higher payment than that because they can't qualify for anything more than that. That means the only other option is to borrow less money. So they can only borrow $492,000, $8,000 less. And then, of course, if the rate goes up another quarter of a point, it's $16,000 less, which again, 3.1% lost buying power. and that is there. And then if it goes up a full point, you've lost $58,000 of your buying power, 11.7%. So this graph is very important to talk to all of our buyers about and our sellers about, because if the buyer cannot pay 500,000 or more, because the interest rates have gone up, then it's going to be a negotiation that the seller is going to be asked to join as well. Okay, this is a new focus on single family. We saw this immediately, almost after the pandemic. Everybody started fleeing condominiums and going into single family homes. We saw the median price of a single family home in Dade County increase by 26% over the last 12 months, and then 13.5% in Broward. And of course, you just heard me say that those have increased, at least for these last few weeks, even more. And those percentages are going to probably, when we start looking at the beginning of this next quarter, where we already are in the second quarter, this 26% is probably going to get larger, and 13.5% is also going to get larger. So single family homes, though, today across the United States is where everybody seems to want to get. In this morning's Wall Street Journal, there's an article about the number of foreign companies that are going into some strategic markets. I think one of the markets that they talked about was Phoenix, and or two of them are Atlanta, where they're buying homes as many as they can buy, because they know that the rental market for homes is very solid. So not only are we competing now with our fellow citizens within each one of these markets, but we now, and at least in those markets, Phoenix and Atlanta, are competing with foreign investors who are trying to buy, multiple hundreds of homes. I talked with one of our sister company at Georgia Properties yesterday in Atlanta, and he said that if he's not getting 12 offers on every new listing, he feels like he's done something wrong. So, I know that we're having multiple offers on our listings, but we haven't had too many, I don't think, where we've had a dozen offers. I know we've had some even more than that, but I think that this is where the pressure is going to continue to be for the foreseeable months ahead. Condos, we were concerned about condos because everybody said, I don't want to be in a condo during the pandemic, early days of the pandemic phase. And we saw amenities closed down. We saw elevator, minimums put on the number of people who can get in an elevator. A lot of people said, I don't want to be in a condo anymore. That changed very quickly. As soon as the vaccine was out, people started feeling a little more comfortable, and now they're feeling very comfortable about going back into condos, where the lifestyle is every bit as great and better in many of these new buildings than it was before. And for the first time, literally in 13 years, we're starting to see some increases in value in condos, just like I explained about Grove Isle there. So I think that the amount of housing we have in condos right now is very available to all of our buyers. I think that they're still good values in most of the condo buildings that we work with. But at all prices, from the lowest to the highest, we're seeing increased activity, which you'll see here in a minute in some of these graphs. Okay, what's causing all this? We talked about this a lot. The tax factor. For 4 years now, we have had a very favorable tax comparison with other higher tax states. There are only 7 states in the United States that have no tax. All these green states, Florida and Texas are the 2 main ones, but Alaska, Nevada, Wyoming, South Dakota, Washington. None of these states have a tax, but yet New York, 8.82% of the tax. You see the size of these circles kind of reference the amount of the tax. So 8.82%, a little bit larger circle in Minnesota. You don't think of Minnesota as having a high tax, but they have a 9.85%, highest marginal tax. Plus, they also have, I think it's a 16% estate tax on all your inheritance, which Florida has none of that either. California, the highest at 13.3%. New York is, in New York City, is about the same, 13%, because the city of New York also has a tax of about 5%. So again, this is a great picture to show people who are looking at moving here. This is one of the main reasons why our growth started so strong 4 years ago. And then you look at the population growth. Okay, so where are these people coming and where are they going? For the first time since we've been tracking this, we had 16 states lost population. All these blue states lost population last year. New York is losing 346 residents per day. Now, this is the net number of people after people move in, people move out, new births, deaths. At the end of the day, 346 fewer residents in New York every day versus Florida, 661 more residents every day. Texas, 1,000 more residents every day. And California now, I don't remember them losing it in the past, but now they're losing people as well. And of course, even in 2019, you see, where those graphs were back then, and now you kind of see this large group of states that are losing population, and a lot of these people are just going south. I mean, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, all of us are growing, and Florida is just leading that. And when you look at any measurement, whether it's baby boomers that are retiring, Florida is high on the list. In fact, Wall Street Journal again had an article the day before yesterday talking about the number of retirees that are moving to Florida. And of all the retirees that moved from anywhere in the United States last year, 13.5% of all of them moved to Florida. So that gives you another reason, that we could point to. It's why we're having this pressure on the number of houses we have for sale. So they're coming from New York. Yes, Sherry?
Sorry, before you moved on, I wanted to offer up that someone else, Marissa, asked, according to The Real Deal, the Mortgage Bankers Association has been tracking applications for mortgages to purchase homes, and they said it decreased 5%, seasonally adjusted from the previous week. This followed 2 weeks of slight decreases. And so wondering if this is an indicator of a slowdown.
Well, I think that a lot of the mortgage numbers that are coming out reflect the fact that the refis are down significantly. I think you did say that the report that she was talking about new purchases. But what's happened to new purchases now is that many of our contracts are cash. And a lot of people are having to cobble together enough cash because in order to compete, they're having to pay cash. Many of those, after they get settled, are coming back and then getting a mortgage, whether they're borrowing from families or whatever to make the initial purchase. But I think that certainly we cannot continue at this pace forever. But I think until we exhaust this current cycle we're in, we will continue to see this kind of activity just because we have so many people coming here. So hopefully that answers the question. But yes, the number of mortgages, the dollar amount of mortgages by the end of 2020 will probably be less. I mean, we're certainly on a pace for it to be, less. There will be less mortgages this year than the year before. And again, part of that is the fact that the rates have increased a little bit, which has pushed some people out of the refinancing, and a lot of people have already refinanced. Okay, question? Any other questions, Sherry? I guess not. Okay. All right. So where are they coming from? They're coming from everywhere. New York obviously has been the one we've heard the most about. California now, we have a significant number of people who have made the decisions to move here. Europe is still talking. Obviously the travel restrictions are still a concern and a restriction on getting a lot of those folks here. Our sister companies, our franchisee companies in Europe are feeling like that there is a lot of pent-up demand there for people that want to come here. Mexico, we're also continuing to see people coming from there. I know from Peru and other places, we're seeing people from South America, certainly far, far fewer than we were accustomed to before. If you went back 5 years ago, all of our realtor information through the MLS indicated that 42% of every $1 million property in South Florida was being sold to someone from outside the country. Today, that's far less than that, probably in the teens now. We don't have as good of records to follow through our Realtor Association on that, but we all know that we're just not seeing the international buyer like we had before, but we have certainly replaced that with the domestic buyer and then some. The exchange rates have a lot to do with this. These are the exchange rates from 30 days ago. All of these countries were more expensive to buy 30 days ago from a year ago. So Argentina has continued to see their currency devalue. The Argentine currency today is only worth maybe not even 5% of what it was worth in 2007 during the recession. So all of these countries are more expensive. The dollar is weakening some, which is probably a good thing for us because it will encourage more people from the outside. This shows all the countries that already their currencies have gained some value against the dollar. Not a lot, but these countries, it's less expensive for them to buy here right now. And again, you're going to have all of this in that report and our Insight report, which you can just find it at ewminsight.com. Okay, market data by price segment. Okay, we're going to kind of go through these kind of quickly, but the under $500,000 market, you know, we used to show this as the under $300,000 market, but we have sold out pretty much of the $300,000 market. For single family homes, and you know, we've had some questions about, well, gosh, we're making so many sales. How can sales be lower, 16.3% fewer sales this year than last year for the first 74 days of the year? So this is a 74-day comparison. But the reason that this number is low is because the $300,000 homes are pretty much gone. And the $450,000 house that would have been in this category a year ago is now over 500. So they've just moved up to the next categories, which you'll see as we move through these slides. But the main point I wanted to make about the under $300,000 market, if you went back in Dade County under $300,000 in 2016, that was 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, homes under $300,000 represented 56% of every single family home sold in Dade County. And Broward County was very similar in the 50% range. And now the $300,000 and under sale represents only 10% of the sales in Dade County and about 15 or 16% of the sales in Broward County. So that price range in single family is just pretty much evaporated. So, and I think that we all know how tight that market is. Inventory in the under $500,000 market is down 68%. In Dade County, it's down 64% in Broward County. The supply now, I talked about that earlier. You know, all these supply numbers right now are going to be lower. You know, we know in single family homes in Dade County, we're at 1.4 months. I mentioned earlier, supply in Broward County is at 1 month, you know, for all single family homes and under $500,000. And the median price, of course, is up in both cases, in both counties. Okay, so these are the condominiums in those markets. Condominium sales in Dade County under $500,000 are up 21%. Inventory's down 25%. Median price is up. You know, supply is down. These are all positive metrics for anybody that's buying a condominium either in Dade or in Broward. The Broward numbers are very similar. Inventory's down 30%, sales are up 23%. Now, this is a very active part of the market. You know, 91% of all condo sales in Broward are under $500,000, and in Miami, it's 74% are under $500,000. Now, you know, kind of remember we didn't talk about this a second ago, but 55% of all homes in Miami are under 55% are under 500,000. In Broward, 62% of all homes sold are under 500,000. So now we move up to 500 to $1 million. Miami-Dade County represents 27% of all the single-family homes sold in Dade County. Sales are up 65%. This is, you know, a lot of these people, of course, you know, before maybe they were in the 450 market, and now they've moved, now they've moved into the 500 plus market. And inventory is down 54% for single family. Broward County, again, similar percentages, 69% increase in sales, 62% decrease in inventory. Supply way down, 2.8 months, 71% drop in supply. Same thing in Broward County, 1.3 months of supply. Very, very low supply. Remember, we want to have inventories that are between 6 months and 9 months in the under $1 million market. This indicator of the market price, whether it's a neutral price or whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market. You know, Lee Casey's designed this very cleverly done with this circle is orange on all fronts. So whether you're going to this quadrant, this quadrant, this quadrant, or this quadrant, and in every one of these cases, it's a seller's market. You know, you won't find a buyer's market very many of these. We'll find a couple of them as we get to the end here, but Makes it very easy for the consumer to look at this and see that, yes, this is a seller's market, seller's market, seller's market, seller's market. So this is our indicator of our months of supply indicator. Okay, so condominiums. Okay, so here we go. We have a couple here where we have a buyer's market with condos that are priced between 500,000 and $1 million. And we have a neutral market for condominiums that are priced between 500 and $1 million in Broward County. Sales, though, are up in every one of these categories. 72% increase in sales, and we are going to get 11.9 months. We're going to get back into the acceptable range here very quickly. $1 million to $2 million. Again, everybody's in a seller's market here. Sales in this market, 91% increase. Our company is fortunate that we get to sell more $1 million plus single family homes than anyone in Dade County. We are selling $1 million plus single family home every 19 hours, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So every 19 hours, EWM is selling another $1 million property, $1 million single family home. 91.2% increase in those sales. Broward County, very similar again, 85%. Supply is down in both cases. And you start getting into even in the $1 million to $2 million range, 3.2 months of supply, 4.2 months of supply. Okay, and then these are condominiums. This is where the numbers are really taking off, 148%. A year ago, we sold 93 sales of condominiums priced between $1 million and $2 million in Dade County. That was in that first 74 days of last year. This year, 231. Staggering differences. 105% increase in Broward County, very similar. Supply is down in both cases. Neutral market on the left and a balanced market, a seller's market on the right. Okay, these are 2 million to 3 million. Now the percentages just get higher and higher. This is $1 million to 2 million, 148%, 105%. We get to 2 million to 3 million, 257% increase in the number of sales. Inventory is down 46%. So this is why you're starting to hear developers talking about building more condos like this. I hope that they kind of hold off a little bit and let's absorb all this before we load up with too much inventory again, because many of these condos at this price have been on the market for not just a few months, but a few years. And so it's nice that we're now seeing this level of activity. Okay, these are these were single family homes. These are condos. Same kind of activity. I mean, 150% increase here, 66% increase there. And then when you get to 3 million to 5 million, single family homes, 329% increase. A year ago, we sold 17 homes between $3 and $5 million. This year, we sold 73. Broward County, last year we sold 17. This year is 25. And again, I keep talking about this is the entire MLS. All these numbers are coming from the MLS. Okay, then the $3 to $5 million condos, 188%, 175%, huge increases in the number of sales. When we get into some of the specific neighborhoods like Key Biscayne and others, I mean, you'll be very surprised at some of these percentages. Okay, 5 million to 10 million, 322%. Broward, once you get past 5 million, you don't have a whole lot of inventory in their market, but in the Dade County market, still significant number of properties at that level. And then condominiums, we still have some work to do. Months of supply are at 16 months, still a drop of 80%. In Dade County, didn't have any sales in that price range in condos at Broward County. $10 million and higher market, 2,200% increase. This is like staggering. One sale last year from the first 74 days of 2020. This year, 23 sales. This actually now for the year to date is up to about 30. We're going to continue to see many single family homes, not just at 10 million, but at 30 and 40 million. The most expensive home sold last year. Actually, the second most expensive home ever sold in Dade County sold on Star Island last year for a little over $50 million. So that was one residence, and we're going to have some other ones this year in the 30 to 50 range. Okay, $10 million and higher market for condos. Last year, there were 2 condos in Miami sold for over $10 million. And for the first 74 days of this year, there were 18, 900% increase. Broward didn't have any. And then market data by city and county. So this is where it gets a lot more detail. Miami-Dade County market and the under $1 million market, we just don't have the inventory, down 62%. So our sales are about the same as they were last year. Broward County, Dade County, over $1 million. We had 159% increase in the over $1 million market, and a flat market in the number of sales in the under 1 million. And then Miami-Dade County condos under $1 million, 26% increase in sales, 171% increase in the over $1 million sales. So again, this is a very healthy market for selling luxury condos. And again, this was long overdue. This blue circle here denotes the fact that these 2 markets are very neutral. They're balanced right where they should be. Broward County market, again, similar positives. Their under $1 million sales, though, are still up, whereas Dade's are kind of tapped out at the pricing, and then they've moved into the over $1 million market. The over $1 million market in Broward is up 88%. And again, the months of supply are very reasonable. 1.1 months of supply under $1 million. And as I said earlier, now all of Broward County single family homes we have 1 month of supply for all price ranges. And the condominiums under $1 million up 24%, and over $1 million up over 100%. But we still have 9.3 months of supply here. So we have a buyer's opportunity in some of these markets still. Not very many though.
Ron?
Yes, Sherry?
Sorry, I do have a few questions that are starting to flow in. So if we could take maybe just a pause. First off, several have asked about social media and breaking out some of these slides to be able to use there. And have to agree, there's some really great content. And I know the intent of our report this time was to probably pull some of those and lift those. So to answer that question, but I did have someone ask about who is buying, actually it was Joanne Sloan, who is buying the 10 million and up kind of, is it US, is it from certain states? Don't know if you'd be able to maybe touch on that. And I did have a couple of more questions when you answer that one.
Sure. Well, answer to Joanne's question first. Yes, Joanne, that's a great question. Many of our buyers, I'd say most of our buyers at the high end are all domestic buyers. I mean, people coming from the United States. And many of them are younger buyers. I mean, a lot of people in the tech world, executives with Google, executives with some of the other tech companies that can now work wherever they want to work. So that's been a very real and positive change for us, because if you can choose anywhere you want to work, I mean, you look at this picture we have up there now of Aventura, looking across the golf courses and the water, and and we all know if you live in that area, shopping and access to travel and all the different things that we do every day make it a very attractive place to live. And so a lot of those people are coming from those markets. And the other comment about social media, yes, we have been putting out a few things already. And Lee, where can they find some of that now? If we go into the resource center, or where can they find some of those pieces?
We emailed it out company-wide.
Yeah, well, we've emailed it out company-wide, but we'll do it again. But yes, these are all great talking points and little snippets of information. I know that I can drown people with numbers because we have so many numbers, but this is the foundation of our business. And I think our buyers and sellers want to know that we understand this, even if they don't understand it or they don't have the time to delve into it as deeply as we do. But we will continue, I think, to see the high-end markets flourishing here because we just are attracting some very, very wealthy people. Our company was a founding member of the Miami-Dade County Beacon Council, our economic development agency. And so we keep a very close ear to what's happening there. And they are having many conversations with tech companies right now that have already been announced and other ones that are still in the conversation stage. But a lot of people are looking at either moving their offices here or allowing their employees to work here. I know of people with other household, word names, company names, that their young executives have been living here all winter. Uh, these people were all from New York City. And, one lady told me that, it was even difficult for her to find food at night because all the restaurants were closed and she didn't own a car in New York like most people don't. And so, living here and being able to walk to Whole Foods or wherever you're living on the beach or in Coral Gables or in Fort Lauderdale or wherever, it's just, it's a real attraction. Okay. Sherry, do you have a
Thank you.
couple of
Yeah,
questions?
no, and I mean, the numbers definitely tell a story. Another question was, do you think that the condo market will continue to rise, maintain, or even be a little concerned that it's going up too quickly?
Well, I think we've been undervalued too long. I mean, people expect a broker to say that, but when you compare our prices to other world centers, I mean, we have been, seriously undervalued. I mean, even today, with New York losing some of their value, you can still buy 3 of our gleaming brand new condos in downtown Miami or Fort Lauderdale for the price of one in Manhattan. It used to be like 4 to 1, and now it's probably 3 to 1, but still very significant difference. And of course, when you compare the quality of life of living here and the weather, people always ask me, what are the assets of living here? I say the weather, as trite as that sounds, is our first asset. Everybody loves our weather. Second is just the ease in getting here. I mean, our airports, whether it's Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, you can get here in a matter of hours from anywhere in the world. And I think another big attraction is the diversity of our people. We've had a lot of conversation over the last months about diversity, which is certainly not something new to us. I mean, we've been experiencing rich diversity here for 40 years and even longer. And, I moved here in 1975, and, Miami was still sort of a sleepy southern town at the time. But, I've been fortunate just to kind of watch it mature over that time. And, I love the statistic of our Miami-Dade County school system. It's the 4th largest public school system in the country. And if you look at the 345,000 kids that are enrolled in the public school system in Miami-Dade County, they were born in 117 different countries. And when they go home in the afternoon, 170 different countries. When they go home in the afternoon, they speak one of 106 other languages or dialects as their first language. So I would argue that we probably are the most diverse place on earth in South Florida. And it's been fun to kind of watch all of us enjoy, the relationships that we've built with people from all over the world, and, the different foods. And, I mean, when people get off the plane here, they find their language here, they find their food here, they find their religion here, they find their friends here. So I think that will continue to propel this growth. And, when you're looking at 661 people a day, and Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach represent 30% of the state's population. So if you have 660 a day, that means we have, roughly 180 or 200 people a day moving just into South Florida. Well, we don't even really average 2 people to a household. I have a lot of single people that live by themselves. And so the average, number of people in a home is a little less than 2 people. So if you take those numbers, we need to be delivering just in these 3 counties about 100 new units of some kind every day. They all can't afford to live in a $1 million property, but that's the reason why you're seeing all these apartments that have been built recently. So I think as soon as people can buy, they want to buy. Now, we've been at this long enough to know that you can't continue this pace forever. So there will be a leveling off. I think that we probably will see in some cases where people have overshot the mark a bit. We might see some fall back in value. If people are going to be in that house for 5 or 10 years, they won't even realize that it happened. But what will happen for sure is that we're going to land on a much higher plateau than we've ever been before, a higher price plateau than we've ever been before. You cannot buy the land, build the buildings for what we're selling most of them for still today. And of course, that's why, the next new buildings, the next new homes are going to be more per square foot than the ones we've just sold. So Sherry, does that kind of
Yeah,
answer
no,
what?
that's great. And I know you're going to get ready to touch on a couple of these markets. When
Yes.
you're specifically talking about the Gables, I guess someone's asking about the condo market and what you see for the coming year. And then another, Gloria was asking about all that construction of condos along US 1 and Bird and how that might be affecting sales and rentals in general. So just be keeping that in mind. And just to remind everybody, if you have your hand raised, that's really if we were having kind of a more of a Q&A for participants to acknowledge. So if you do have a question, to be sure to either put it into the chat or to the Q&A so we can try to answer those. So Ron, I'll turn it back over to you
Okay.
now.
Well, I'm going to talk about Coral Gables in just a second, so kind of hold that question for a second. Brickell, Brickell's a market that we've all watched for years, and a lot of great growth. When Swire built Brickell City Center, 10 years ago or so, I mean, it had a huge difference in the number of sales that were made, and a huge difference in the price that people were paying. Sales in the under $1 million single family, you don't even think about Brickell having many single family homes, but there are a few, 11 sales this year versus 4 last year. In the over $1 million market, there it is there for sales. And again, single family, you don't have a whole lot of single family homes in Brickell, but then condominiums, we have a lot. 45% increase in the number of sales, which is tremendous. I mean, it's a great, opportunity for people to get some real value right now. As you see on the monthly supply indicator in the center there, we have a neutral market, meaning that we're in that, 6 to 9 months roughly of supply over there in the under $1 million market. And in the over $1 million market, we still have a lot more than we need. We'll talk about that in a second. But in the first 74 days this year, 331 sales. Last year was 228 sales. We definitely are seeing prices firming up. Inventory is down. First time we've seen a drop in inventory in a few years. Median price is up 8.6%. And then when you look over in the over $1 million condo market in in Brickell, you have had 20 sales in the first 74 days this year versus 10 last year. So 100% increase. These are smaller numbers. Over $1 million condos in Brickell represent 6% of all the sales, whereas the under $1 million represent 94%. So the bulk of the sales in Brickell are under $1 million, but still some great values there. And I think that will continue. Coral Gables market, single family homes. We've moved this price point to $2 million because that's kind of the entry level for luxury in Coral Gables. Sales are up 70%. Inventory is down 67%. When you have those two graphs moving in the opposite directions at the same percentage, you're going to have price appreciation. The median price is up 9.2%. It shows here the median price is $950,000. It's over $1 million now in Coral Gables. Supply is down to 1.7 months in the under $2 million market. The over $2 million market is where a lot of activity has been happening, 210%. Now, again, you have to kind of remember that we're working with, smaller number of sales, but 210% on any measurement is very large. Last year, we had 10 sales of single family homes over $2 million in the first 74 days of the year. And this year we had 31. And of course, you compare that to the under $2 million market was 107. If you look at the breakout, about a fourth of the sales in Coral Gables are now over $2 million and 3/4 are under $2 million. And then when somebody would ask about condominiums, and here are those numbers, total sales under $1 million are up 15%. The total sales over $1 million are actually down. The challenge when you get into such small numbers of units, Coral Gables has not built a lot of condominiums yet, our townhomes over $1 million. And so we kind of have to take these in periods when the buildings are finished and we have inventory to sell. The inventory shows here is being down 11% and sales are down 27%. But I think that we're seeing many more people moving from large homes into large condos, and that will continue. Coral Gables is a very walkable city now. Most of these expensive condos, some of them are over on the water, but many of them are now in downtown where people want to be able to walk to things. And even in condos that are $2 and $3 million, those residents also like the ability to walk. And I think that we'll continue to see that as well. The condominiums that were built in the downtown market over the last 15 years generally are under $1 million, but the newer condos are being built now, and the ones that have been recently completed are in the over $1 million market. But as you see, it's not a lot of inventory at this point, but that's going to continue to grow. Okay, Fort Lauderdale market. Again, Fort Lauderdale is a very solid place as well. A lot of people, love the access to the water there and the beach, and of course, boating all throughout South Florida is very, very popular. In Fort Lauderdale, probably even more popular with mega yachts and all that's been happening there for a number of years. And the under $1 million market represents 83% of all the sales in Fort Lauderdale single-family homes, and over $1 million is 17% of the market. Still a very large percentage of the market when you think about 17% of all home sales are over $1 million. Just a year ago, those numbers were in the 6 and 7% range. So we've seen a significant increase in the number of $1 million sales both in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And condominiums, similar kind of increases to 148% increase in the over $1 million condo market in Fort Lauderdale. Very attractive for not only seasonal people, but for permanent residents as well. That was another comment I didn't make when we were talking about Grove Isle, but many of our condominiums now have a high percentage of non-owner occupants. But in Grove Isle, 50% of the owners there live in their unit. They have homestead exemption. And if you look at Miami-Dade as a general market, only about 36% of the condominiums have that many, have a high percentage of owner occupants. So if you have, more than 50% owners in a building, it's going to be a much more stable building, because you won't probably have the turnover that you will have if you have investors. And I see that transition happening right now, that many people that have been renting for, in some cases, a decade or more are saying that now's the time to buy. Interest rates are the lowest that they probably will be for many of our lifetimes. And so I think that will encourage more and more people to move into these condos, especially the urban condos.
Right.
Hollywood market.
Oh,
sure.
sorry. As you're talking about this a little bit, I mean, we've been looking at kind of the closed sales, but a question was asked about pending and what that kind of has looked like over the past 74 days.
Okay.
And then also somebody else was asking about, we've been talking a lot about sales, but what's happening to the rentals of single family homes, and how much more rent could we get this year as opposed to last year because of such low inventory? Maybe in terms of, you might not even have in terms of percentages, but those were two recent questions that have come up.
Okay. All right. Well, the question about pendings. Thank you for asking that, whoever asked that. If you look at the pending sales for single family homes in Miami-Dade County, this is where it gets a little fuzzy, because we have so many, the last year, the pending sales were, we're comparing now against last year's pending sales when the pandemic was starting. When COVID first set in, we weren't making many sales. So you have to take this, you have to do some different kind of comparisons. But if you compare the April 13th, April 1st to the 13th pendings over just the last month, we've had a 153% increase in sales. And pending sales and single family homes in Miami. And in Fort Lauderdale, those pending sales, these are numbers are crazy. They're up 400%. Now I'm comparing, I'm sorry, maybe I misstated that. We're comparing the first 13 days of April of 2021 to the first 13 days of April 20. So when you compare that to last year, when we were not making a lot of sales, obviously we would expect that number to be very large. But it was a large number even leading up to. The March numbers compared to last March, which were not, being affected by the pandemic yet. We still had over 100% increases in pendings. But the pendings for Miami-Dade County single-family homes in the last 13 days is up 153%. And in Broward County, for single family homes, it's up 202%. And condos, I actually said a minute ago, those prices for Broward County, or excuse me, the pendings in Broward County are up 403%. And you know what, I don't have the pendings for Dade County condos, but they were also up significantly compared to last year. So that, you know, that kind of addresses the pending. What was the other question you had, Sherry?
Sure, it was about rentals of the single family homes.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing rental prices increasing for single family homes, condominiums, townhomes, you know, every type of home. You know, it's with all the new buildings that we have, the new apartment buildings, some people were concerned that maybe that was going to lower our rental values, but we've seen them staying pretty strong. And of course, we can find exceptions to that. But when you have this number of people that are moving into our marketplace, again, 661 people across the state every day, I think that number by the end of this year for sure is going to be a lot more than 661 people a day. You know, back before the recession, and we were at that point, we were increasing at 900 to 1,000 people a day. I don't see any reason why we would not get back to those kind of numbers with the amount of activity that we're seeing. Okay, Sherry, anything else before I move on?
Well, there was a question about the future of the Key Biscayne market. I know we've got.
Well, yeah, that's where I'm getting, I've got a lot of things to say about Key Biscayne because I want to thank everybody for being with us today. I know, you know, Key Biscayne Chamber, you guys are always so kind to help keep everybody on the Key familiar and understanding of what's going on in the market. Significant increases. I mean, as you see here, you know, 380% increase in the number of sales over $2 million. Last year we had 5 sales. This year 24 sales of single family homes. I mean, under $2 million market, you know, we don't have a whole lot of inventory in Key Biscayne now under $2 million. 83% of all the homes sold in Key Biscayne are now over $2 million, 380% increase. Now, you know, if you look at what's creating that, Key Biscayne for many years was considered more of a resort. It's still considered a resort, but I think we had a higher number of buyers coming from other countries, other states, you know, to be part-time residents. And what I'm witnessing, and I think we all are, is that we're seeing many more permanent residents moving to the Key. You know, they realize the convenience of living on a private island, basically, to the convenience of being connected to a major bustling urban, you know, center like Miami. So shopping and, you know, restaurants and all the other things that are offered throughout the region are just within, you know, a short distance from living on really, I call it a private island. And I think that, you know, the Key Biscayne Chamber, and thank you folks for having you know, your members join us here today. Mostly these are our UWM associates and some other people from outside, but we always enjoy being with Key Biscayne because that community is so tight, so close with each other. We've done a lot of events there together, and you know, with the Islander newspaper and other people that, you know, have helped us get the word out about the market. These kind of numbers are very, very positive. You know, prior to this, Key Biscayne had been kind of languishing in price a bit because we were transitioning from being more of a second home buyer to a permanent buyer. And now that permanent buyers have kind of recognized that, wow, this is a jewel waiting for me to purchase, we've had some significant sales this year on Key Biscayne, and there are other ones that are happening right now. I think that, you know, when Key Biscayne was incorporated in 1991, you know, that was a big turning point for the Key. You know, the new bridge was put in back during that period as well, or before that, and it just has made the fact that the leadership in Key Biscayne is managed by the village council, and when you drive through and see the park space and just the quality of life additions that have been made to the Key, that's largely responsible for the value increases that we're seeing right now. You know, the quality of the condominiums that have been built there in the last few years, There just really isn't anything that's negative other than the fact that it's gotten very expensive. But I think that's natural. You only need a small group of affluent people to show up in one small place to have a large impact. And I think that's what we've been witnessing now for the last several months, this whole year, frankly. And I think that word is out now, and we will continue to see that. But as you see in the over $2 million, under $2 million single family market, it's moving certainly toward the over $2 million price point, 83% of all the sales. And then when you look at condominiums, the next one, we've looked at this in the $1 million break point, a fourth of all the condominiums on, excuse me, did I have, this was condominiums. Yeah, I skipped over. Condominiums for Key Biscayne in the over $2 million market represent a quarter of all the sales, 22% of all condo sales, and then I must have I did some kind of calculation wrong. It's 88%, 22%. That doesn't add up to 100%. So regardless, though, we have sales up 115% in both cases. And so there's a nice selection of properties in both the under 2 million and the over 2 million. And then the supply, of course, is down. We're down into the 5 months of supply. It wasn't very long ago that we had 3 and 4 years of supply on Key Biscayne these prices. And so that's very, very positive as well. So unless somebody else has other questions about the Key, I think that that the Key is probably one of the brightest spots on these graphs because of where the market had been for the prior 3 to 5 years, and now what we see, it's like everybody discovered Key Biscayne all at the same time.
Interesting, Ron, that Joanne Sloan also commented that Will Langley reported to her yesterday that 50% of buyers in the Florida Keys are Florida residents. So Floridians are fleeing to the Keys.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah, well, we're seeing that from both coasts. Florida, we're very proud of our state. I mean, we all love living here. I think when COVID is hopefully gone for everybody, we will look back at this period and see that we as communities all across the state, really handled this as well as anyone, if not better, with as many people as we have. I mean, we have 23 million people in the state, and of course, you add on to that all the people that are here that don't live here permanently. I mean, we probably always have like 25 million or more people in the state at one time. So I think we've done a great job of doing that. And of course, having access to the outside that we do for outside, dining and just being outside, I think gives everybody a more confident feeling that they're protected from the virus. Okay, City of Miami market. This, of course, would be anywhere in the City of Miami limits. As you see, again, condos over $1 million, significant increase in the number of sales. Single-family homes, I'm sorry, those are all single-family homes. Single-family homes over $1 million, significant number of sales. Under $1 million, also an increase. And then condominiums, the same thing, 115% increase in the number of condos. The City of Miami has some of the most, some of the newest and most beautiful condos that have been built in the last decade all along the waterfront there. So I think that in both of these cases, though, for under $1 million and over $1 million condos, we're still showing that we have a buyer's market in these cases. So I think that especially in the over $1 million, where we have 24 months of supply, those numbers are going to be coming down. I think that will be a significant change over just the next 60 days because we see how many sales we're making. Our Brickell office sold, just our company sold 7 units at Brickell City Center last month. And of course, these are brand new units that have never been lived in. So, many of those buyers, were encouraged by, low interest rates and all the other things that are motivating buyers today. Miami Beach market. Oh my gosh, this is kind of when people think of the beach and the expensive and luxury. I mean, they think of Miami in general. They think of the beaches, and again, single family homes over $2 million, 360% increase. A year ago, only sold 15 homes on the beach. And then this year, in the first 74 days, 69 sales, 360% increase in an under $2 million market, which represents about half of the sales on Miami Beach now. So half of the sales, are 48%, are under 2 million, and 52% are over 2 million. So that's a good balance. Also expensive, but beautiful housing there. And then condominiums on Miami Beach. Look at the number of sales over $2 million, 578% increase. Everybody wants to have a condo on the beach. 9 sales last year, 61 this year. All these graphs are very, very positive. If you're a seller, if you're a buyer, you need to continue to move quickly. Palmetto Bay market, this is a market which also is gaining in value. Over $1 million homes are up 400%. Again, we're only going from 1 sale to 5 sales, but Palmetto Bay is a very special place. It's not an urban center. It's not a huge population. Palmetto Bay and Pinecrest are similar in that regard. Sales in the under 10 million and the under $1 million are up 10%. Sales of single family over $1 million are up 400%. Supply is down to 1 month in the under $1 million market. So we all know that working in that area, how difficult it is just to find listings. Palmetto Bay market condos, there are a few, not a lot, but sales in the under $1 million market are up 450%. 2 sales a year ago, 11 sales this year. Pinecrest, similar looking percentages to what we just saw in Palmetto Bay, but we're looking at only at a $2 million break point. So a third of all the homes in Pinecrest are now over $1 million, over $2 million, and 2/3 are under $2 million. Significant number of sales in the over 2 million, 188% increase. Again, putting that in perspective, 8 sales a year ago, 23 sales this year, and under $2 million, 27% increase. The number of homes for sale are down 65% in the under $2 million market, under 2 million and over 2 million down 24%. And there are some condos in Pinecrest also, not many. 10 sales this year, so basically same as last year, 11 last year, 10 this year. No condos over $2 million. And then Sunny Isles Beach, single family homes, there are a few, not many. Then condos, though, there are a lot. So sales Sunny Isles Beach are up in the under $1 million market, up 64%, over $1 million market, up 222%. The months of supplies you see in that both cases are still higher than we would like, but in the over $1 million market, 69.5% decrease in the number of months of supply. We've talked about this many times that, the supply in this market and the over $1 million Sunny Isles Beach condo market, we had been up to at points, to 12 and 15 years of supply. And now to be down to 2 years of supply is a big improvement. And I think that these newer buildings that are just opening there have been very well received. The amenities in these buildings are just over the top. I see where the Desert Group is going to now build a Bentley building, another very tall building where you'll be able to drive your car into your elevator and take you and your car up to your floor, similar to the Porsche Tower. So Sunny Isles Beach is going to continue to see a very active market with all that they have to offer. And then, okay, well, that's the last slide. There's the website again, ewninsight.com. It's 11:14, so I don't want to keep everybody, but Sherry, do you have another question?
I do, actually. You did a beautiful job going through so much information. So you did great on time, I think, to get that much in. One question, and actually several have asked about it, is sea level rising. We have so much great activity and migration and taxes and all here, but we haven't really touched on, or maybe have heard too much more recently about sea level rising, and just wanting to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Well, I can honestly say no one has ever told me that they are not buying because of sea level rise. It definitely is on all of our minds. And I think that what is going to create more discussion about this coming year is insurance. The Wall Street Journal yesterday was poking around looking for buyers to talk to about the higher cost of insurance in places like Miami Beach and like Miami in general. because of our elevation. And of course, we're not alone in that. There are even cities in the northeastern United States that are now looking at making modifications for sea level rise potential. So at this point, it has not affected value. You're going to see some more sales closing here in the next 30, 60 days. They're going to be in the $30 to $50 million range on the water. And I think that sort of answers the question that if people are willing to spend that level of investment for a single family home on the water, then it must not be concerning them too much. Insurance is going to be the question. Having policies now on these homes, and a $5 million home, with a policy on the water can be somewhere in the $40,000 range per year now. I know that sounds like that's not possible, but when you're right on the water and everyone knows that there's probably a chance of flooding at some point, the insurance is just going to be higher. So as long as our insurance companies work with us, I think that we will continue to sell, a lot of properties in those markets. And of course, Miami Beach has done more to mitigate that than most of our other communities, but Fort Lauderdale and other communities are taking some significant actions now to raise seawalls and to change building code elevations and so forth. And those rules have been in effect. The building code elevations have been in effect now since Hurricane Andrew in 1992. So we've been working on. I guess those changes didn't happen until like 94, 95, but a lot of the new housing that's been built in those markets are significantly higher at their first finished floor level than they were before. So hopefully that helps. I don't really have an answer for that. I mean,
I think you touched it, and we actually have somebody else asking about foreclosures. It seems like banks are in a better position than back in 2008. But with insurance prices, taxes going up, especially for the non-homestead homes, are we thinking that we might see more foreclosures, happening, or that it may affect, or depress prices? Any thoughts?
I don't think we're going to have foreclosures. I mean, there are always going to be some foreclosures. I mean, even in the best markets, I mean, maybe 5-10% of the properties are foreclosed. Certainly, when we went through the recession, I mean, that was a global economic recession versus a global health, period. I mean, this is certainly not a recession we're in right now. I think that we will see. We have seen significant growth in every price range home this year. I mean, 26% increase in the median price of a home, just in Miami and Miami-Dade County, and of course in Broward County, significant increases as well too. So because of that, the value of everyone's home has gone up. Now, if someone has somehow refinanced and has a 100% mortgage, I mean, it's a different story. But for people who have bought since the recession, I mean, people who have purchased a home since '08, I just can't see how many of those would go into foreclosure, because before you would allow it to go into foreclosure, you would just sell it because you still have equity, unless, again, you've refinanced it to a level that would not be normal. So I don't sense that too much. I mean, we're not working with many foreclosures right now.
Okay. What about if small, medium investors looking to buy for rental, with prices sort of going up and rental returns are probably, continuing to go down? What are your thoughts for the investors out there?
Well, I think a lot of people look more to like group investing, like you invest in a REIT or other kind of investment vehicles. But if you want to own real estate, I mean, obviously there are many condominiums at all price ranges that people can own, and each condominium has a different goal as well. I mean, some of our condominiums are older buildings. People who have been buying in those for the last few years, and we've seen some of those happening where the group of homeowners, and generally these are smaller buildings, but less than 100 owners, will say, okay, this building is is now reached its maximum value as a building, and so let's tear it down and sell it to a developer to build a new building. So, some of those opportunities are out there, but I think that single family is still the number one, easiest probably for a single investor to see appreciation, because each individual home is unique. Again, trying to find one that probably needs some work that you can add value to it. We know that our buyers today are willing to pay for finished remodeled homes, significantly pay for finished remodeled homes. So anybody who can do some of that work themselves, if they can buy a house that maybe other buyers have passed by because they were scared away by the work, but putting on a new roof or impact windows and those kind of things definitely add more value than it costs you to do. And then if you carry those in a rental, even with a low return, I mean, it's difficult today with the prices where we are to make a 5% return after taxes and insurance and cost of maintaining a rental property. But where the real gain comes is in periods like this, when we hit these spikes of increase in value. So, I moved to Miami in 1975, and I'm from my office here looking out across the gables, and I can see some of the neighborhoods here. The smaller homes that were 1,500 square feet are still 1,500 square feet. They were some of the original George Merrick designed homes, and ones that were built, in the 60s and even 70s. The mid-century homes in 50s and 60s. All of those homes when I moved here in 1975, you could purchase any of them for $65,000 to $75,000, and now we're selling those homes for $750,000 to $1 million. And you just think, oh, how could that happen? Well, but that's happening. I mean, the cost of a car is a lot more. I mean, everything, inflation carries a lot of that up. But as I tell everybody, just get in the game. If you don't own your own home, I mean, at least do that. And then if you can add another property, to your portfolio of investments, then that certainly is a nice hedge against anything else that's going on in the world today. And of course, as you look back historically at all of Florida, certainly South Florida, you can see that people have made significant gains in their investments. I remember when Al Harper and I started working together in the late 70s, and we were building condos in both coast of Florida. And I look back at some of those condos that we built and we were selling literally for $60,000 that are now selling for 10 times that, if not more than that. And same thing with Gables Estates. I can remember in 1984 we sold a house in Gables Estates on the bayfront for $1.5 million. Well, now the lot's probably worth $30 million. So that's kind of the kind of returns that you can get from owning property for a long period of time. So our business is not like the stock market where you can kind of go in and maybe hit one deal one time and get a huge increase. But for the people who are long-term thinking and just steady and manage their properties well, I just can't see why there won't be continued gain, into the many years down the road.
Okay. All good. One topic we really hadn't touched on this morning that somebody was asking about is transportation. Any thoughts on, I know even today it seemed like traffic was a little bit heavier. I think more people are coming back into the office. So.
Well, traffic is always going to be with us. Bill Talbert, who is the head of our Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, I love his comment. He says, "Tell me one successful city that doesn't have a traffic problem." And it's true. I think it kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, if we want to enjoy all of the quality of life that we have and what's here, then a lot of other people want to enjoy that same quality, and that's not going to change. I think what is changing is where people are choosing to live. Our condominium buildings, especially our high-rise buildings, have become very popular because everything is there. You can walk to so many things. In the Brickell area, I know, we've all kind of had to had to wait through the construction periods and all the flying concrete and all the things that you deal with when you're building, 50, 60-story buildings in a very tight space. But now that it's all there and built and the amenities are wonderful, I think that we often say here that we're now selling the 2 C's of community and convenience. And I think that that's what we will continue to see, that people they'll want to move close to where they want to be, and they like the community of living in a place, where there are other people, other like-minded people that they can be friends with. And a lot of friendships have been built within our urban cores here in South Florida, where people have just met each other, and that's been their home for 20, 30 years, and probably will continue to be.
Okay.
So that's my I guess resolution for traffic. We do have people movers, people mover downtown. Our Metro Rail in Coral Gables and some of the other markets, Miami Beach and places. We have the trolleys, and so you can get short distance moves pretty quickly, pretty easily. But I think most people just want to be able to walk to things, and I think that's what we're developing as a community.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Ron. I know how much time it takes to get ready, to unpack all this stuff, to prepare all this stuff. Thank you, Lee Casey, for putting this beautiful piece together. All this data, you can go to ewminsight.com if you'd like to view it digitally. And we have recorded this session, so we'll be sending this back out. Thank you. I see here, even at the end, we still have over 200 people. So appreciate everybody's time and wishing you a great day. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate what you do every day, because I know you're working very, very hard right now. It's 8 days a week, but just hang in there. And Key Biscayne, thank you for joining us. We love the Key Biscayne community and Key Biscayne Chamber in particular. You guys have always been such a resource for us and for our whole community. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. See ya.